Okay, welcome to our first take reading reviews, where you get to follow us reading the passage the way we typically like to do and answer the questions. So hopefully you'll get a lot more out of this than a typical written answer explanation and see a bit of our process as we go. In this case, looks like we have a nonfiction. I generally will skim read this, which means I'll read the first paragraph until I understand it. Highlight the first sentence of every paragraph, maybe the ending and key transition words between, and then read the conclusion a little more closely again. So with that, let's jump into it and begin. Excerpt from Scribe Like an Egyptian. In ancient Egypt, literacy was the key to success. So that looks like a clear thesis statement that this passage is going to be about. However, we've got a contrast here. Contrary to popular belief, not all Egyptian scribes understood hieroglyphs. Many relied instead on the simpler hieratic script from the multitude of everyday documents generated by Egyptian bureaucracy. Okay, so this introduces, there's a second type of writing called hieratic script, which is used for everyday purposes. Hieroglyphs, the word of God, compose a writing system of more than 1,000 distinct characters, meaning which is lost for many years before they were deciphered by Jean-Francois Champollion in 1822. Okay, so a very complicated system, 1,000 different words. Compare that to our 26. Before they're deciphered by, and phonograms was used in formal inscriptions in tomb and temple walls. So these were used in tombs. For everyday purposes, however, again a contrast, scribes used a shorthand version called hieratic. So this is the same idea as the first paragraph. It's introducing hieratic, which was more of a, regularly used script. Quicker and more economical in space. So we're getting more information about that and how it's different in this paragraph. Scraps of ancient hieratic writing, mostly penned by student scribes on line scum, suggests that no matter how humble his origins, an educated Egyptian could achieve almost anything. So that seems a powerful point, which might be the topic of this paragraph. Hormeb is a good example. Yeah, we have an example. Born of middle-ranking parents, his scribal training led to an army career. To the recruits during the reign of, don't even want to try and pronounce that, Hormeb rose through the military ranks, and by the rule of Tutankhamun, he was commander-in-chief of the Egyptian forces, close advisor of the young pharaoh. He was appointed deputy of the king, and eventually he achieved the pinnacle of his career by becoming the last king. So he went from scribe to king, an example of a scribe achieving almost anything. But, so we're contrasting, the fourth paragraph is contrasting, education was not available to all. Government departments, major temples supported schools where boys commenced training 6 or 7. Family or household servants delivered to students food and drink rations. Boys from poorer families could only hope to be educated with support from a wealthier patron. So this is about how you came to be a scribe, and it looks like it was not easy if you didn't have money or support. Paragraph 5, scribal education began with the elementary principles of the hieratic script. So this, once you're in and getting educated, it looks like this is how it begins. This paragraph will tell us. You begin with the hieratic script. Lower scribes trained for 5 or 6 years, learn the rudiments of the hieroglyphic script. Students set exemplar documents, extracts from popular text to copy, to practice their writing on basic letter forms, reports, and contracts. Surviving examples of work sometimes include tutors' corrections added in red. Significant literary works survive almost exclusively from student copies. Okay, this looks like the conclusion. A schoolboy dictionary of hieroglyphs with their hieratic equivalent shows that a knowledge of more than 450 signs is required for everyday writing purposes. Okay, that's less than half the hieroglyphs at over 1,000. Lessons in record keeping and filing labeling enabled any half-competent scribe to perform that most essential of all scribal functions. It's important. The making and updating of lists. So the most important function for scribes is to make and update lists. For professions such as those of government official, priest, lawyer, a scribe would train for several more years, increasing his vocabulary to perhaps 1,000 or more signs. Those with the best handwriting or drawing might follow the craft of creating beautifully illustrated copies of funerary texts, commonly called the Book of the Dead. Others become draftsmen, artists, architects, doctors compiled their own collections of medication recipes. So what's going on here? We're getting all kinds of examples of different occupations where scribes and the ability to write, that is, make and update lists, is very important. Got to keep records in society. Lawyers had to be familiar with the corpus of civil and religious laws and precedents found in the official records. Another example. Egypt's bureaucratic society depended on the skills of an army of scribes from all ranks. For young Egyptians, be a scribe was the best of career advice. So that's reiterating that a young Egyptian could go anywhere. So, okay, what's the main idea here? The topic is about scribes. What's interesting, it's telling how the culture of ancient Egypt depended on scribes and what a career opportunity could provide for younger people. So how did the argument get developed? Well, they first introduced the main idea that literacy is a key to success, and then they introduced a second script beyond hieroglyphs called as hieratic. It describes in the second paragraph the hieroglyphs and what they are. The third paragraph describes how an educated scribe could ultimately almost do anything. But unfortunately, the fourth paragraph, it's not available to those who didn't have the means to afford it generally. And then paragraph 5 begins to outline what we do and how we become a scribe. And paragraph 6 talks about, well, what a scribe does and adds value to in society for ancient Egypt, various different careers, etc. So in this case, we've covered, kind of what's the main idea, what's the topic, what's interesting about the topic and why we care. We've outlined what's the progression of ideas, and we also kind of outlined who's writing this. It's a third-person informative essay about ancient scribes in Egypt.